Welcome to BAF Draft. Here's your host, Gary Wilkinson.
What up?
And your co-hosts, Lunchbox and Matt the Z.
Hey, everybody.
What's going on, guys?
Going pretty good. How are you doing?
Not much. Let's let the intro die down.
Yeah, we'll let it die down.
Can't hear.
Okay. I'm going to pan it back over.
Let it go, dude.
Okay, so welcome to our third edition of BAF Draft.
Technically fourth.
Shh, don't let the secret out. This is our third episode, and as you can see, I have Lunchbox back with Matt.
Hey.
So now we got two of the guys back. This is probably going to be our normal little trio that we do. So, how are you guys doing?
Same as I'm always doing.
Okay, talking to the mic.
I'm fat. You can hear me. I can hear you. You can hear me.
Okay, so
Fat is a state of being now?
Fat is a state of being. It is.
all right.
here's what
If I
we're
lean towards the mic, I get exhausted and
Gotcha,
breathe heavy.
okay.
You guys don't want that.
Gotcha. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do pack one, pick one. And we're going to do it with Battle for Zendikar. So everybody has their... Well, let's open up the one pack we have. Basically, we used an online pack generator, and I printed out the same thing for everybody. We haven't looked at it yet.
And this is one of the complications we have here at BAFDraft is that we have to wait 3 to 4 weeks to get product.
Tell them what happened
War
to
is
the last
hell.
case that you ordered, Matt.
Oh, the last case that I ordered where
Yeah,
they sent
that
me,
should have been here last week.
where they sent me a message, and next thing you know, they sent another message, and I didn't realize you had to actually check the messages.
That's why we have
Yeah.
cubes, and that's why we have Commander. It keeps us occupied until we get product for draft. Okay, so we're going to start from the bottom. You know, you always look... I don't normally
Started
start
from the bottom. Now we're here.
So you have a mountain. It's in there.
Hold on, you better cut that. I don't think we have enough money to pay for those.
Oh. Okay, so the first card is Blister Pod. That's your one-drop green that when it dies, it gives you an Eldrazi Scion.
First card's a mountain.
So, first legit card.
Hold on, are we going to really allow Scion to just go?
Yeah.
Is
We're
it
not saying
Scion?
it.
Is it
It's
Scion?
Scion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of the car.
The car is
Car is
Scion.
Oh, is it Scion? It's
Holy
SC...
crap.
Hang on, it's S-C-I-O-N, right?
Scion.
That's Scion.
No, it's not S-K-Y-I-O-N.
Okay.
S-K-Y-O-N.
Okay. I've been calling it Scion forever. So, anywho, we know what I was talking about. So, and it has Devoid, so it has no color. You know, green's not very well, people still win with green, but yeah, that's kind of.
Wait, isn't this the card that you said is a must anytime you draft?
Yes, but
yes.
this is before I listened to Limited Resources, and they told me what I should know about green.
Oh yeah. See, this is just basically a rehash of everybody else's crap. We have no original
This
ideas
is
here
not.
at
No.
BAFDraft.
I'm basing a lot of my decisions on the draft. I've done green before, and it just doesn't work. It seems like a great idea, but it doesn't work.
Here's the real question, Gary. Have you drafted and played with Blister Pod?
Yes, I have.
And
Did
how
you
did
I've
it work?
never won.
How
wonder
did the
what.
card play out?
The card works great, but there's a black card that's better that gives you a Scion. So
You say Scion again, I'm going to turn this table and slap you.
okay, so second card. This is another one drop. It's white, and it's Cliffside Lookout. You pay. Basically, it's a 1/1 creature. You pay 1 white, 4 colorless, and you can give creatures +1/+1 till end of turn.
First off, it is not just a 1/1 creature. It is a 1/1
Ally.
ally for 1.
Okay. Unless you're doing an ally setup, this is definitely not a first pick because you're not committing to an ally theme right off the rip. So, if you were gonna throw it in after you already had an ally set up, maybe. What's your opinions?
I've never drafted allies.
I have. It works good when
It's
you.
hard.
Oh, yeah, that was scary. Oh,
It gets beastly if you can pull it off. It's getting to pull it off because that means everybody else has got to pass the good allies, or even the little allies. They've got to come to you.
I would definitely pick 3, pick 4 if I was in allies. If I had a nice one, my first pick, second pick was solid allies. And I knew
Solid,
allies
yeah,
were gonna
exactly.
come
Good
flowing.
ones.
You would
I
have
would
to get
pick
a
this
really.
early.
Or you drafted
Yeah.
a rare ally that did something. There's a couple in there that are really phenomenal just by themselves.
Yeah.
And then when an ally comes onto the board, they.
I've tried to do black-white ally before, and the only problem is I had great big cards. It was all the little guys that triggered things that I couldn't get. Okay, so third card is Vestige of Emrakul.
Vestige.
Vestige. Vestiga.
Vestiga.
Vestiga. Okay, so it's a one
Isn't
red.
it Visage?
No, It's
No,
Vestige.
Visage
It
is
has to be.
Visage. This is Vestige.
Vestige or Vestige.
Vestige?
Vestige sounds classier.
Vestige.
Okay, so it's a 1 red, 3 colorless, devoid trample, 3/4. That's it. That's all it does.
Basically, it's an STD. Vestige. Don't get it.
Okay,
I'm gonna. That's the pick so far.
really? Well, out of the 3,
So
yeah.
far, yes.
Out of the three.
Next one, Eldrazi Devastator.
Now
It's
that's the
a-
pick so far.
It's a colorless 8, trample 8/9. You know,
Not even close.
Yeah,
No.
I would take that for my big.
I would do that later on, like if it came around and there wasn't much else to pick.
Not every deck can play an 8-drop.
Yeah.
It's true, but out of what we've pulled so far, that's the one. No, I picked the ally first.
No, I would go with the Vestige because I found out that the once you get past that 3 power level, that's when you actually have something on the board. Everything else is very easy to remove, very hard to trade swap for swap. You can trade up on that. Basically, you can kill another creature with that.
I would
without
still
having to
kill Cliffside, that being a 1-cost, a 1-drop basically, and you get it out. Because 1-drops go fast in this draft. You guys haven't noticed. When this stuff comes around,
I've
the
noticed.
smaller stuff goes quickly.
Yeah.
So out of the 4 that we've said so far, I would take Cliffside.
Now here's another one
And I
coming
wouldn't
up.
even
Here's
worry
another
about
one
his
coming
ability.
up that I would pick over all of these. This is just me. Is Ondu Greathorn. It's 1 white, 3 colorless. It's a 2/3 first strike beast, and it has landfall. And whenever land comes in, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn.
Yeah, I would take that too.
I've noticed that the landfall stuff gets really nasty, and the first strike ability is huge for that.
Yep, you can take your 4-cost 3/2 all day long, and I will still take the red card.
Okay. Belligerent Whiptail. That's the next one. 1 red, 3 colorless. Still has landfall. It's a worm. Doesn't fly or anything. It says when a land enters a battlefield under your control, this creature gains first strike until the end of turn. It's a 4/2. That's actually that's conditional. It's hard to say because they're the same cost. I would probably still pick the I'd pick the Whiptail because you still at least get a 4/2. You can still trade off and kill another creature. And with the landfall, you get the first strike, so that makes it just as powerful as the one before. But I'm assuming Matt's still going to go with that Devoid Trample for 3/4.
I'm going to go with the Devoid Trample.
Okay.
Why?
Well, at the point where you're playing your 4-drops, and then it's your 5-drop and 6-drop, now you're going to start missing land drops. So his ability to have first strike all the time is going to be very, very severely weakened. You know, getting to your 4-drops is easy. Getting to your 5-drops, you're looking at that on turn 6. Because you could just be missing lands. You may want to be placing
That's
playing
true.
another 4-drop.
The ideal scenario that I've noticed in draft, like current, let's say last year or 2 draft, is trying to get that 5-drop land on turn 5, which doesn't happen every time.
But if I'm going for 4-drops and I'm just comparing 4-drop to 4-drop, I would take the Whiptail over the Vestige because it's a base 3/4, and I have the opportunity to possibly give a first strike. And if he sings with it and can't pump it, they're both going to die.
I'm
It's a
going to go
trade-off
with you.
either
I'd
way.
rather have a big guy to trade off with another guy. Because if we went head to head, I'm going to kill we're both going to die.
Well, the problem being is that this is a 4/2 that trades for all 2/2s. So you spend 4 mana to get 4/2, and it's going to trade for every 2-power creature, unless you play a land. So,
But
on-
if you
on the
have a
defense-
4,
Yeah, I'm obviously not
the
going to
thing,
trade it.
yeah,
for
I
your
wouldn't
2
trade it for
twos.
that. I'm probably going to have other creatures on the board. I'm just saying, if I went up against the Vestige compared to the Whiptail, I'm going to make out better in that because I still have the possibility of a land drop where all you have, me and Lunchbox are in agreement on that one.
Well, what I'm saying is, let's say it's turn 4. Let's say it's turn 5. You don't have a land drop. Now you have a 4/2 that's looking at my 2/2, and you choose not to attack. Right? My turn, I get to attack with my 2/2, and you choose again not to block,
That is a scenario, but
which
I
is
don't
very
think,
realistic.
It's very realistic, but I would assume I would have other stuff out. But I'm just, I see your point, but I'm still going to stick with the Whiptail. So.
It's a card that trades down.
Okay, so let's go, in your opinion.
Hold on. No, mathematically it trades down. Since it trades for all things that are 2-drop, that's 2 mana.
You're
that
looking
spending.
at just straight up, like...
Yeah, what it trades for. What does a 4/2
No,
trade
you're
for?
looking for straight up stats. You're not looking at odds and other possibilities. Other than the guy has trample, your Vestige has no other option of doing anything else. My Whiptail could possibly be a first strike, which might as well be a 4/4.
Well, this is also Devoid.
True.
And the Devoid deck...
Yeah, there is stuff that triggers on that, especially if you're playing black.
Well,
Yeah.
the black
I've
red
never
Devoid
seen the
deck,
Devoid
the
Yeah.
blue red Devoid deck.
There's a lot of triggers that come in for Devoid that are really good. Okay, so now you convinced me, Vestige. Just on the Devoid thing. Okay, next card. Looming Spires. This is one of those non-basic lands. It's a common. When it enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, target creature gets +1/+1 and gains first strike until the end of turn. You can tap it and get red mana. I think most of these cards are garbage. I like the blue one, and I kind of like the white one.
I want one in my deck. Or two. 1 to 2. If I'm red,
Yeah,
I want
it's
one
definitely
of
not a
these.
first pick, I'll tell you that.
No.
Definitely not. Okay, here's
You're
one.
gonna get them anyway. They're gonna come around.
Oh, yeah.
Here's one that is a surprisingly good card. This is the next pick. It is Fortified Rampart. It is a common, 1 white, 1 colorless. It's a Defender 0/6. There's a lot of ground stuff and a lot of big stuff, and early on in the game you can really... That's a very frustrating card to be up against, I'll say that.
It can only block one creature. And
That's
it doesn't
cool.
Kill that
It's
creature.
also very difficult to get removed, and are you going to really waste your time on something that can't kill? I'm telling you, it's a good card. I think it's a decent card. I've seen it do well.
Yeah,
I
it
wouldn't
be
pick
first
it,
pick
but
at any of what we've gone through so far. Not even close.
Matt,
It's the pick.
that's the pick
That's
so far.
the pick right now.
Yeah.
It trumps every single card we've talked about so far.
So you're
Not
looking.
close.
So far, everything you've said is like cost to defense ratio.
Well, first off,
That's what. I mean,
all the
getting
way
at
up to turn 4, there is nothing on this board. So what we've seen so far that can get through that.
Yeah, and the fact that it's a 2-drop that actually can sustain. It's a 2-drop that can take on a 4-drop. It's a 2-drop that can take on every 4-drop here. The only thing it can take on is an 8-drop, but at that point, hopefully...
At that point, you've already got stuff set up at that point.
Hopefully.
Mortu-
It's my pick.
Mortuary
Yeah,
Mire,
I wouldn't
next
take a
one.
Defender.
It's a good card. That's why I preface like it's a good card. It's frustrating to go against.
It buys you
can't-
time. That's it.
Well, it also stops the guy from attacking.
It
and
buys you
gives
time. That is all it does.
Right, and that's all you need in this format. This is a format for... when you get to Haymakers, it's a format for Haymakers.
Okay, next card, Mortuary Mire. This is another one of those lands. It's the black version, and it comes in tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you may return a creature from your graveyard on top of your library. If you're expecting to sacrifice stuff.
It's a good card. If you're thinking you might possibly want to play black, depending on the meta game, that actually might be something to pull. Something that's small and death touchy out. Put it back on the battlefield, something like
Yeah.
that. Then I would, if I thought I was going to play black, maybe, but
There's
I wouldn't
still
first
solid
pick it.
removal in Battle for Zendikar.
Oh yeah.
And when somebody counters or gets rid of something that like really would piece things together, it'd be nice to have that.
Well, here's the scenario for you. Would you play that in a black-red deck? He's thinking.
Yeah,
He's
I think I
thinking.
would.
How about would you play it in a black-white ally deck?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. The synergies with a black-white ally deck, meaning that you know for a fact you're going to trigger your ally next turn, or your rally next turn, that is terrifying for any opponent. Now, in every other scenario, then they know exactly what you have next. If it doesn't have haste, they know exactly where they're going to be. They know what your board state's going to look like next turn, so they have a whole vision of the future. The ally deck is terrifying.
Yeah, vision of the future of getting stumped.
So here's the next one. Talking about allies and good allies that have triggered abilities. This is Calistria Healer. It's a 1 black, 1 colorless, 1/2. It is a vampire cleric ally. It has rally. Whenever he comes into play or another ally, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1
Now,
life.
this would be my first pick so far out of everything we've gone through. Absolutely, this is a great card.
It would be. I would consider it. I mean, because right off the rip, you're doing 1 damage and you gain a life, and there's a possibility of getting it.
Healer, not close.
No.
Not close. There's nothing else.
I mean, only thing is, if you pick that,
What do you mean?
you're committing to if you're committing to the ally or ally effect of it, that doesn't. You're not guaranteed to get anything later on to support that.
It's a 2-drop 1/2 that does an instant ping, and if you get it early, and they don't have anything else, you
I know
can
there's
keep
better.
pinging.
There's better 2-drop pings that do more damage and are better cards.
Not out of this pack so far.
No,
Yeah,
not out of this
that's
pack.
going to be my first pick.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the first pick so far. It doesn't dedicate you to anything. Even if you're black-red, having an effect like this can just buy you that
Yeah.
1 extra turn.
I'll say that out of all the others, yes, because I've already kind of looked at it.
That's what we're doing. It's called pack 1.
Yeah.
Pick 1.
Well, here we go. Horribly Awry. 1 blue, 1 colorless, devoid. Counter creature spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. If this spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it in its graveyard.
Well, Wizards actually just put out that blue is no longer allowed in any Magic format. So yeah,
I actually like this card. I mean, it's a. I don't know. I like the card because it if you're doing the abilities where you unexile cards to trigger things, it's great for that. It is a counter spell. It stops that early momentum, but then again, you're just trading a card for card. There's probably better creatures for 2-drop.
But again, blue's not allowed anymore, so you can't even play it.
I'd have a hard time. I'd probably would pick that one first.
It trades a card for card. It fuels your Devoid. The problem is you don't even know if you're in blue, and this is not a payoff to be in blue. This is not an excuse to go.
No,
in blue.
this is not a reason to commit to blue. No.
Healer's still the pick.
Okay. Here's the next one. We're getting into. Well, that was the first. By the way, that last one was the first uncommon. So now we're going to go into the next uncommon, which is a Malakir Familiar. It's a bat. It's 1 black, 2 colorless. It's flying with Death Touch. Whenever you gain life, you get a +1/+1. Let's see.
He gets
+1/+1, not a counter. Just becomes +1/+1 till end of turn. Right now, he's a 2/1. I think that's my number one right now. After that,
I still would take the Colorless Dracula over that. It's a 3 cost. It does have evasion and Death Touch. That's awesome, but that's it.
Well, the way I look at it is, the healer is the engine to the car, and the familiar is the destination that the car is going to take you to. So which do you want first? Do you want the engine, or do you want the destination?
I want to know where I'm going so I can build my engine better.
For me, I want the engine to give me the payoff cards later.
Okay.
Because these 2 cards go in the same deck. They want to be in the same deck together. They're happy, and that's where they're most comfortable. So do you want the deck that's gonna the actual establishment for the deck, or the payoff for the deck? And I think in my opinion,
I would definitely still pick the familiar, like for sure.
Nope.
Yeah,
Can't even agree with you a little bit.
Just
nope, not even a little bit.
Okay, next one. Scythe or Sith Leopard. It's a 1 green. It is uncommon. It has landfall.
You sure it's not Skithy?
No, it's
Scythe.
Whenever it's Scythe.
Scythe. Oh my god. We're gonna bring a thesaurus or a thesaurus.
There's a C. There's a C right after the S's on everything, and I guess it's
Scythe.
silent, so. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn. It's a 1/1. I mean, if you're playing green, fast aggro, cool, but just green doesn't work like that. I've played green a bunch of times.
Considering how bad green is in this format, just at all, I wouldn't even touch that card.
That's still a good. It's still, if you're playing green, that's a good card. It's
if
still a
you're
good card.
playing green, so if you found something else that was better than that, and you got this like
the chances
fifth or
of it
sixth
being
in,
a
maybe.
2/2 on the second turn are. It's gonna happen.
Well, hold on. The chances of being a 2/2 mean that you have to, in your first draw of your hand, you have to have this. You have to be able to have the mana to pay it. Okay, you play it. Now, let's say you have 1 in your deck. So, help me out with the math here. But what is the chances of in your first 7 a 1 in 40? In your first 7, what's the math in that of drawing that card?
I got you.
Turn 5, turn 6, you draw this. Top deck this.
Yeah, it's no good then. It's garbage then.
Spicy,
so no, leave it
hot
alone.
garbage.
Okay, next card, it's my pick. I can already tell you because I know this card. Sire, and I would stick to 2 colors because of this. Sire of Stagnation.
Sire of Stagnation.
Sire of Stagnation. It's very hard to read it. Okay, Devoid. This is a 1 blue, 1 black, 4 colorless. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, that player exiles the top 2 cards of his or her library, and you draw 2 cards. And it's a 5/7.
I would still take Colorless.
Are you kidding me? I'd take that all day long. That is such a powerful card.
I'm not going to lock myself into 2 colors and for pack 1, pick 1. Not happening.
I'll take the healer, and I'll kill you before you can play this card.
Exactly.
No, I'll take this, and then I'm going to do all kinds of other stuff, and then you're just going to get rid of all your cards, and I'm going to draw into better stuff. I'm telling you, I'd take that card, man. That's because the chances, the black and blue are still good in this deck. Black, blue, black, red are very good in this set that I've seen. And
if I was already in a black, blue, black, red deck, I would splash blue for this, or I'd splash black for this.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not.
It's still the only thing is it's still a creature you can just get rid of and kill with a removal spell. So.
Yeah. And it's only 5/7.
It's still a very good card.
It's good that but your opponent gets to play around it completely. They have total control over how.
If they don't play a land, yeah. I don't know. I'd be so nervous to go up against that later, and I think it has so much potential.
Okay, let me give you another scenario.
Okay.
This one, I think you'll feel in. This thing costs 6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, by the time you're on turn 6, I have the option to not play any land, so you don't get that.
True.
And chances are I'm going to have 5 or 6 land if I'm keeping up with you, depending on turn and if I'm missing land drops. But roughly 5 or 6 land around that time if I'm doing okay. Almost anything in this deck except the Eldrazi's, which most people don't play around. They don't make that their end game. You know, they try to get done before the Eldrazi's. A lot of people play aggro, especially in this format. You're gonna You're gonna play this. It'll stay on the board, but you're not gonna be able to use its ability. You might be able to attack and swing with it, but I'll get rid of that before I drop a land.
I see your point.
And I've got 5 or 6 land, which everything in here, except for the Eldrazi Devastator and that card, is I could play for that mana I have.
Okay. I will change my mind. I'm going with the Malakir Familiar. That's still my first pick.
We tried, ladies and gentlemen. We tried.
Hey, that's why everybody drafts different, so.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
It means
When was the last time we got first place?
By the way, I got second place last night. So,
I don't think that was the question. Lunchy? You think that was the question?
Kind of, maybe, might have been, no.
No? Okay.
no. I got first place on a tournament online a couple weeks ago. So, well, about a month ago. Maybe longer. Okay,
That was out of 70 tournaments he played in the last 2 months.
I haven't played a lot of online lately. Okay, so next topic we're going to talk about was last episode we talked about how my belief was that fat packs yield better pulls. It's just a myth, you know. It's like the urban legend of Magic the Gathering.
It's a superstition. It's not a myth. It's not an urban legend.
It's
your
the urban
superstition.
legend, urban myth, whatever you want to call it.
It's like you never change your socks when the Red Sox play or something like that. It's just it's not a myth, not an urban legend. It is your stupid stition. Superstition. We'll go with that.
Stupidstition? I like
Stupid
that.
stition.
Okay,
yeah.
well, let me tell you. Okay, so last time
Superstition.
we were joking around about the expedition lands. Now, I did say it would be cool if I pulled a foil Gideon and an Ulamog, and I'd be happy. Well, first pack I pull a Gideon, not foil, but I did pull a Gideon. Second pack I pull a Ulamog. So suck it. Fat packs are better for me. It's just for whatever reason.
Well, just remember, don't change your socks anytime you're opening a fat pack.
Well, karma has a thing for me with fat packs or something. I don't know what I did to deserve that, but that's just my pull. So
I don't have any fat packs coming.
Me
no.
neither.
Of the new set?
No,
I'm thinking
full art.
of the new set coming out. I'm thinking of ordering the whole little gambit, the whole.
Now the fat packs do come with the full art lands, right? All the way across.
Yes.
So that would be the only reason I would buy a fat pack, because I like the full art lands.
Exactly. Well, that's the reason why
And
they
you
got
get-
up to $90.
And
Yeah.
which you can just go buy the packs online for, or the lands online for cheaper than that. But you're getting the dice, you're getting the 9 packs as well. So yeah, I mean it's nice. But I'm gonna get a
So
fat
how
pack.
much is a fat pack retail for?
I want to say at Walmart $39 or $40 or something like that.
Yeah, I think the MSR is 30.
Yeah, it's not that high. Like even before they came out, they were up to $50 to $60.
So $5 a pack-ish, plus lands.
you
and
get the
dice?
lands and the dice and a box.
Ooh.
It's a nice
Yeah, I'll just
box,
buy a
though.
box. Yeah, it's okay box.
No, it's a cool box. It's got a lid.
They look cool.
It's got a lid on there.
Yeah,
There's
the
a
lids that you
dice.
grab every time, and then they just fall out from underneath you. Every time
And
it's
if you
happened
pack
to
your
me.
cards in there wrong, they bend the corners. of
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a box, though.
It is a box.
What's in the box?
Okay. So next topic we're going to talk about is what.
Wow. Talk about fluid transitions here.
I know, right?
What?
And stop. And next
Well,
topic
what do you
is
want to talk about
and
more on
stop.
the?
No, you just keep going. Don't you see the next topic?
Okay, here we go. So, what and how are you guys collecting and why? Like, what's your thing now? Like, what are you into?
Oh, go ahead, Max. I'm not collecting anything. I get rid of everything I get.
And how do you get rid of everything you get?
Puka Trade.
Puka Trade!
I got like
PukaTrade.com.
$40 worth of stuff I sent out came in today on Puka Trade to the guys.
And we have mentioned
So
the
I got
advantage
stuff
of us
coming in.
using Puka Trade, right? The whole thing where we have free shipping.
I have not mentioned that.
Free
mail.
shipping, free mail sent out of here.
Shh, it's a secret.
Oh, it's great. I love it. Puka Trade all day long. Love
So
those guys.
you have been getting rid of it. I got rid of a ton of. I was Lunchbox's broker for a while, so I got rid
Yeah,
of
and
a
then he
ton of
quit.
crap. Well, because you ain't got crap to send out anymore.
Yeah, except that expeditionary land I'm still holding.
Oh, if you want me to... I mean, you can do that. That's single stuff. You have mass quantity, so I was doing your mass quantity. I got over $1,000 of puka dollars for you. Puka points worth of... $1,000 worth of puka points. So you've got fetch land, or dual lands, so you're collecting those, right?
Oh, yeah. That's just an investment value. Those will never get played.
Okay.
Those aren't going to touch anything.
Do you have any bad lands? The black-white?
I don't remember. I'd have to go look.
I have that on my puka want. So, just one.
Just
for
one?
my black-white deck.
Well, I know I've got volcanic islands. I've got bayous. I've got an underground sea.
Underground sea is the expensive one.
They're all expensive, but
that's
the
the
most
really
expensive.
expensive
Yeah,
one.
it's.
So what about you, Matt?
Oh, right now I'm just working on commander stuff.
Okay,
I'm just trading away for commanders.
Gotcha. I am doing the same, and by the way, I have a profit of the crew fix on the way. So you said you needed one, right?
I do need one.
It's on the way.
So you have a profit for trade?
I guess I do, because I can't think of anything right off the top of my head I can throw in the deck. So
Sweet.
He's just gonna get it and put it in his binders. Like, that one's not for trade, but you can look at anything else.
well, I want to buy certain stuff that I know are kind of commander staples or whatever. That's what I'm trying to do now, is buy like big stuff that's commander that I think can fit in. Because I like playing green, black, white, and black, blue, and black, mono black. So that's kind of been. Those are the only ones I've been happy with.
You just named every color.
No.
You named every color except
No.
red.
No.
I feel like I'm green. I like white. I like black. I like
I don't
blue.
like mono red. I don't like mono.
I like
blue.
devoid.
I don't like mono white.
I like lands. Lands are good.
I named
Appreciate
4 different
creatures.
decks. I named 4 different color combinations. So.
Tokens are good.
Okay, so me and Matt, was this before I went on vacation that we played online, or after I got back?
I have no idea.
I think it was before I went on vacation. We played an online game, sitting outside of his office in the truck at like 2 in the morning. Remember that?
That never happened.
Yeah.
I'm not admitting to that.
So we're out in the truck. I have.
Hold on. You cannot just bypass that. 2 o'clock in the morning, sitting in a truck, 2 grown men. Wow.
Well, we had to have internet, and you can't have internet in our offices. So I ran a power cable in the back of my truck while it was running, because it has a outlet, ran it in the back, had the computer up, and had the little puck Velcro to the back of the computer. This particular one right here, actually. And we went on and drafted together. So we drafted, what did we draft? A blue, was it blue-white or?
Blue-white flyers.
Blue-white flyers. And we would have won the whole tournament, but Matt screwed up, but I'll let him explain. We lost because of Matt. You remember why you lost?
We lost because of Matt. We're talking about a single game that took place, what is this now, 2 months ago? Month and a half ago? A month ago? And we're going to try and analyze why we lost.
Well, here's the
from a
deal.
month ago?
I'm very paranoid about time on the games, because online everything's timed. What you do is timed. So he's like, don't worry about that, and that's how we lost. We ran out of time. And I think we could have pulled it off, or at least we would have got the draw out of that. Or he
We
would've...
lost because the Soul of Oblivion took 6 of our land, well, 4 of our land, and then they played a bunch of Eldrazi, and then turned them sideways.
We could have pulled it off, man.
And then you ran out of time.
And then apparently we ran out of time.
No, we got...
If by time you mean our life total. And
our life total, but we had like 50 seconds or something, and the other guy had 10 seconds. Just, there's a strategy to time, is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
The awkward silence.
Yeah,
I lost the other day by 1 second.
Where's the cricket sound effect? Yeah, see, tell that story. Don't tell a match that happened months ago.
Okay, so I played the other, I don't know, this is about a week and a half ago, and this guy has a green deck, and I call everything green in Battle for Zendikar a stall deck. So there's a 1-drop green that has the landfall, that every time land comes in, you gain 1 life. He had 3 of those out, like by turn 3. I don't know how. He did this in both games. So we're on the second game. I won the first game. I was going to win the second game. It was just time. His deck was so hard to get around. He had this wall up of creatures. And I ran out of time. So we were hurrying up on round 3. Actually, I lost round 2. I conceded to purposely bypass round 3. Or not, no, did I concede? Yeah, I did. I'm trying to think how this works.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why you don't talk about games you played so long ago that you forget what
This
the
was
game
like
was
a
even
week
about.
ago. Anyways,
And for Gary,
you
that's
can
a
see
week,
both
obviously.
of us. The F6 key, I think, ends the turn with no other moves, right? So we're both F6 in it. You can see that we're just trying to do crap to buy time and see who runs out first. And I forgot that I had 8 cards in my hand. I hit end turn. I'm thinking I got it, and then I forgot to discard my 1 card, and my time went down to 0. He had 1 second left. I should have won. That's the frustrations of online.
And not to mention the internet here is horrible.
Yeah.
So now they're playing a new game. So it's not Magic anymore. It's more like speed chess, but where they're not moving the
Speed
pieces.
Magic, yeah.
Yeah, it's speed magic. Where they're not moving the pieces, they're just pushing, seeing who can push the button faster.
Yeah, pretty much.
One on each side.
That's another element of strategy.
Just picture 2 chimpanzees on each side of a chess clock smashing it back and forth.
More
That's
like
what you
Jenga,
got.
If you ask me.
So I didn't mention this on the last podcast. It's been a while since we did the last podcast. We did have a guy show up to our BAF draft because he heard the first podcast.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I think it was very cool. Like, I don't even know how. I put it on SoundCloud. SoundCloud.com is where we keep our podcast. But if you're on our BAF draft page, I do post the link to that. If you look up BAF draft on SoundCloud, you'll find our podcast. But if you're listening to this, you already found it, obviously. So.
Well, it could have been an accident.
Yeah.
Could be.
He was looking up something and it popped up because of the tags. And he listened to it and he's like, hey, this is kind of recent. And I was just like, wow. So I hadn't even put it on our page yet and showed anybody. I just uploaded it on SoundCloud. So it was there for the search. I just hadn't advertised it.
Well, now that we're talking about things cool that happened, one of our guys got a bunch of stuff from...
Oh, Fantasy Flight
Oh,
Games.
yeah, this is really cool.
Fantasy Flight Games. Yeah, I sent an email out asking him, telling him that we had some people who played Magic, and, you know, some of the people were complaining that Magic got a little bit stale, and they wanted to shake it up a little bit, try something new. I personally own a bunch of Fantasy Flight games.
What
back at home.
what kind of games does Fantasy Flight make? Matt?
Board games?
Wow,
But
nice
can
plug.
Do they make any popular ones or anything I would know or maybe our listeners?
That you would know? No, they don't make
Yeah,
anything
they
you
make
would know.
Warhammer 40,000. Jeez, man, that's what I'm trying to pull out of you.
No,
They-
they make a card game for Warhammer 40,000. They are not.
Can we just
Oh,
call it
I thought they made
Warhammer
Warhammer
40K and not
40,000.
sound like retards?
Okay, so but they do make the Dragon Shield sleeves.
They do.
They do make
Dragon
those.
Shields.
They do.
They do. They are licensed with Dragon Shield,
Okay.
I believe.
I thought they made them. I didn't know.
I don't think so.
Okay,
they're,
so
they're a
they're-
board game company.
Man, you're really not helping my sell here on this.
So let him talk and
Okay.
finish and stop interrupting him. Okay, you can
Anyway,
continue.
so I sent him an email requesting just to see if it was possible they could send out some games to the soldiers, and they did. They said yes, and they sent us a nice little pile. They sent Descent 2nd Edition, which was awesome. They sent Arkham Horror, which is a game that I love. Oh my word! Let's get 8 people and let's play some Arkham Horror. You know, take out those Cthulhu monsters. There you go. And then like Gary was saying, they sent Warhammer Fantasy Invasion and the expansions.
That's awesome. So a shout out to
Fantasy Flight Games.
Fantasy Flight Games and the USOs where we ended up sending those, so everybody on post could get enjoyment out of that. And the USO is also where we play our BAF Draft. So I'm going to give them props too because they're the ones that give us a place to play.
Yes.
Yes. So it looks our numbers have not been as big as they normally have, but we've at least had about 6 people every time now, right?
Yeah.
Other than last Tuesday.
Well, last Tuesday was special. Should do a shout out to Disney as well for sending out a special copy of Star Wars: The Force Awakens for all the soldiers.
That was
Yeah.
outstanding. Sent one of their executives out with it, and
Yeah, one of their VPs of sales or something, and then
I heard Vice President of Northern Sales
yes,
or
that's
something,
who
North
it is.
American
Yep,
Sales.
Yep, that's what it is.
came out, stayed out here for several days, and screened.
Very packed every single time. too.
Yes.
Yeah, it was much appreciated. Terrible movie, but much appreciated.
Oh, my
Don't go
gosh.
there.
I mean, don't make fun of Luke and Leia's daughter.
Stop trying.
Okay, so another topic that I don't know if Lunchbox can be interested in: the future of vintage. Is it already dead, or is it just because we're not in that we're not seeing this?
Hey, did you guys hear something? Sounds like a vintage player just literally walked in the door.
Yeah, dude.
Oh. This guy?
Yeah,
This
vintage
guy over
just
here,
walked in.
Robert Price, vintage extraordinaire. Don't walk away. You better come in here, sir. We have a question for you, Gary.
Yeah, that's the question. Here's my question.
Well,
So-
how about he greet the BAF Draft Podcast?
Well, hello, everyone, and it's good to talk to you guys. Glad to be here.
Robert's like old school, like Magic guy. He's got like all the goodie cards.
Okay, just to be clear, Robert's old school everything.
Is he old school OG?
Possibly.
So now you're mainly a legacy player,
Mainly, that's
but
what
you've
I
played
enjoy.
vintage though, and you
Yes.
have vintage cards to play. Why do you think other than I think what the obvious answer is going to be, is vintage not as big anymore?
Well, they haven't been big for a long time. Vintage usually has one major tournament a year now, I believe. It's called the Bazaar of Moxon. I think that's about the only vintage tournament they have every year, and they usually have a good turnout for that. But the problem is the card pool for vintage is so small. You're dealing with legacy crunching on the lands. They're already available. Most of your vintage players don't play legacy. They strictly play vintage. They're collectors. They're the older guys that's been in the game since it's been out. They're the ones that's holding on to all the black border dual lands and all the black border power and all those Moxon and things of that nature.
Now, when you say the card pool is small, you're not referring to the cards that you're allowed to play. You're referring to the actual availability of these cards.
Yes, that's correct. If you keep up with Wizards and what they released on the official print policy, I factored it down one time about how many cards were printed just from the Legends set, which was the first expansion for Magic, I do believe. I believe there were like 6 million total cards printed for the entire Legends. That was all the Wizards ever printed. And of that, if you break things down by rarity and do the math and do the number crunch, you come out with somewhere around 17,000 copies of some of the harder to get rares. Is all that were ever printed and existed to begin with.
And you're talking over, 20 years ago now?
Exactly.
2 decades?
It's not like baseball cards, where baseball cards they print millions of each.
Exactly.
And what is it? The Power 9. I think there's about 3,000 or 4,000 of each of those.
There were twice as many in beta as there were in alpha.
Okay.
The alpha print run was so much, I can't remember exactly what. I don't think the statistics were ever released for exactly how many copies of Black Lotus was printed. You can guess on it, but I believe there were about 2,500 copies released in alpha. I think there was about 5,000 if you want to really do the math crunch on what you can see in the data that is available. There was about 5,000 printed in beta, and in unlimited it was around 12 to 17, I think, thousand.
Okay.
And that's as many pieces of jewelry as there are out there.
And that's not counting the fact that originally you weren't allowed to play with sleeves. So you're talking about damaged decks, you're talking about cards that have just gotten destroyed, you're talking about parents who threw cards away not knowing the stuff was valuable.
Exactly.
Now, I notice online vintage is still being played because they reprinted the digital versions of them. Now, you were talking about the Bazaar of Mox, is that what it's called?
Bazaar of Moxon.
Didn't you mention that on the last podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went on there and looked. It's hard because, unless I'm willing to dish out, several thousands of dollars, I can't really get into that, But I guess once you're in, does it change that often when new sets come out? Doesn't affect it as much as it does modern play when new great cards come out?
Well, of course not. Anytime you go back in any history point on different sets or different types of formats, the further back you go, the less impact anything new they print will have on the format. Because to print something that would have a noticeable effect on a format such as vintage or legacy, you would have to print something with a power level that's not acceptable for standard play.
Okay.
So a lot of your cards that you're getting now that are filtering into the vintage and legacy community of what they're playing are not even modern legal cards that are printed in specialty packs for Commander or something from the vault along those lines.
So here's my question. At this tournament that you guys were talking about, is the player base growing or is it shrinking?
It's probably maintaining about stable. The thing is, there's only so many cards, so if 500 people show up to that event and they have to travel quite extensively to get there, you're looking at a large investment just to get to the event, not to mention you sit down at a table and everybody's playing decks that are completely tweaked out with alphas and betas, and you got $100,000 worth of cards sitting on a table in one game between two people. Security is a problem. You have security now paid to be at most of those events to make sure nobody loses anything because of the value of the cardboard that's being played at the tables. But I wouldn't say it's dying out. It's just there's not a venue for it anymore. There's not enough people that are congregated close enough together to have regular events. because of the time of traveling and everything. And you don't have a major push other than that one event per year from anyone reputable like Star City Games. Wizards doesn't support it at all, other than the online version where you have card availability, things of that nature. There's not a problem getting the cards in Magic Online.
Yeah, it makes sense.
As far as Legacy is concerned, I don't foresee it dying out completely for a very long time. I think Legacy right now is where Vintage was, I'd say 16, 17 years ago.
Okay.
So we're going to see quite a few Legacy events now. From what I gathered from the people I've talked to about Star City Games, the reason for not covering the Legacy tournaments as much as they did before, where it's only the Opens, I believe the Invitationals and the Opens now that are strictly Legacy events, was due to time constraints. They used to play Legacy at every event. You had Standard on Saturday, Legacy on Sunday. They dropped down and out where you have a rotating, sometimes it's Modern, sometimes it's Legacy, on the second day event, but the Standard event pours over to the second day, so they were having time problems with getting the podcast out and having enough manpower to cover both events simultaneously happening at the same time on the second day.
So, what do you think about prices for Vintage? I mean, like, I haven't noticed a shift in them in the last few years. Like, they haven't gone up, they haven't gone down, but they haven't gone up. I mean, am I wrong on seeing that? Like, remember, in the last 10 years, there's been a dramatic increase in dual lands and the mods.
Well,
but now everything seems like it's leveled out. Like,
the largest increase due to the dual lands was strictly for Legacy. That is Legacy, in a nutshell, is the 10 dual lands. There's nothing else really that's that impactful in Legacy that is on the reserve list that can't be reprinted that has any implications as close as what the dual lands mean for the format.
So the dual lands are the ones that will be going up.
Exactly, they're wanted there, and they're also wanted, and they're collected by collectors also.
My investment is sound.
Right, and you've got EDH now, which is coming on.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, that's a very popular format. I think that's going to be very big in the near future, especially with all the Commander product and all the support Wizards is putting out for it. It's kind of like supporting the Vintage and the Legacy format inadvertently. I guess you could say, or covertly supporting it, but not really supporting it.
Yeah, getting
officially.
the cards out for it that can be played for it, but doing it for a new format, so both kind of grow off of it.
Some
that's a good
people
idea.
complain about Commander being a format now where you're getting cards that are too good, where it's becoming kind of a vintage format, even though it's a singleton 100-card format, where you're getting set lists of certain cards that just have to be indexed for competitive play. And now what is happening to Commanders is becoming competitive, it's becoming commercialized, and people are starting to enjoy it, and the more they enjoy it, it's just human nature to want to be better at it. So now people are optimizing decks better. There's set lists of cards for set colors. There's tiers of Commanders where you're not playing for money at any of the events that are payout events. If you're not playing this list of Commanders, you've got your tier 1s, 2s, and 3s, and anything below that is considered unplayable in a format. There's no reason for you to sit down at the table.
And am I correct? Like anything Commander that's newly printed, that's a new card, it's only Legacy, correct?
You can play those in Legacy or Vintage. You can't.
Well, I
play
mean,
them
it's
in-
not Modern. Like, it's Legacy or older, correct? Yeah.
The cards are considered eternal, and so they can only be played in eternal formats.
Okay, Eternal format would be... That's a weird term.
Formats that don't change from here on out.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because Modern's always changing based on the new, and Standard's always moving, so... Okay.
Modern.
No, Modern still... Whatever new comes out is added to Modern.
Well,
Right,
same
but
with
the new cards
Legacy and
affect
Vintage.
Modern
Well,
more
yeah,
adversely
I guess
than they
so,
do the
that's
older
true.
formats.
That's true. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
you think about how Modern works. You have a really strong block comes out with a really strong deck archetype, and that's going to end up being playable and portable straight to Modern. You make a few tweaks, a couple adjustments, but the actual core of the deck and what made the deck good is still going to be available, and all you're going to be doing is upgrading some of the spot removal or a couple other cards that you're not starting from scratch with the deck. You can port it straight over to Modern and still be somewhat competitive, and if it's a really good standard block that you have at the time the deck comes out, you're going to have a really top tier deck in Modern for a while until something gets banned. And that's about how they handle Modern. You look at John, look at the past, what they did to John, what they did to Jason Mind Sculptor, what they did to Stoneforge Mystic. I mean, that was a deck that when it was legal in Modern, pre-banning, it was ruling standard. You go to the top 8, and the top 8-7 of the decks is playing the same list in the top 8, and then it goes and gets ported straight over to Modern, and it's crushing everything in Modern, so then they ban some stuff in Modern. and then simultaneously ban it in standard because they were tired of seeing it at the time.
But they can't touch it in Vintage and Legacy. And It's eternal.
Well, things get banned for different reasons in the older formats.
I guess that's why I like standard limited, or new limited, like whatever's coming out.
So back to the vintage question here.
Okay.
Is vintage worth let's
Is it
assume
worth
it's dying.
investing?
Is it worth saving? No, not even
Oh,
investing.
is it even worth
Is it
saving?
worth? Is it a format that's worth saving? Is there any value from a player standpoint into watching or caring about vintage? Can I look at it and say, hey, vintage is this format where things cost so much money, I don't even care.
Well, let's
It's
streamline that to
not
newer
even
players
that.
because the older players are obviously going to say, I guarantee Rob's going to say yes. To me, I could care less if the vintage format comes or goes. I could care less.
It seems
Except for the
redundant.
history of, keep it around for casual play, but having a vintage tournament or trying to push vintage, I don't see it happen. There's just too much back there. It is daunting to go back and look at all that stuff and be like, man, I mean, you have a hard time for new players just learning standard and all the stuff that's coming out in the blocks that are available. And then you push them to modern, they've got even more stuff to learn. By the time you hit vintage and legacy, it's...
Okay, so here's my take on it, and then we'll let Rob go on his rant here. I think, me personally, I like playing Vintage Cube because it's a draft, and it has a lot of that same stuff in it, but it has other stuff in it as well. As far as the format goes, like constructed Vintage, if nothing new coming out, rarely if ever anything new coming out affects it, then you're just playing the same crap over and over again. It seems like it get old after a while. You're just seeing the same thing, nothing new. I like new stuff because it would just get to me after a while. Like it's like playing Monopoly every day, 5 times a day, every single day, and just expecting. It's the same thing. That's just me. So value, I don't know. I don't know if I can predict the value of the cards at this point in time. I wouldn't invest my money in any of the Power 9 because I don't think they're going to hold their value. I think they're at their peak right now.
They're never truly going to come down in value because Magic started out as a collectible game and people paid that for them, so they're not going to sell them for less than that, which means that's going to artificially keep the price pumped up for the ones that do filter into the market. You're never going to see it really come down. I don't think you're going to see it spike unless there's some huge popularity increase or boom in the game. But you have to think, all the new players that come into the game, they're going to play standard for probably 3 to 5 years. Then they're going to get kind of bored with that and be like, okay, yes, I like the constantly rotating thing, but I've got all these cards that I've collected over all this time. I need to play them somewhere. So then they go to playing Modern. They get really interested in Modern, and then they get vested in it. So they start playing Standard to sell the stuff they win from playing Standard to buy Modern staples. Then they get into Modern real heavy. Then they play Modern for a while. They play it 2 or 3 years. Then they'll be like, well, is there anything else to this game? Is there something I haven't seen yet? Is there things that I could be doing that I'm never going to get to play with in Modern? They'll run over and try Legacy out. Then they'll see that it is a completely different format than Modern, just as Vintage is a completely different format from Legacy.
And they'll realize how much it costs to go from modern to legacy
And
in
they're
a
like, I'm already
capable
in.
format.
Well-
No, you're not even close.
The way you really have to look at it is Magic is a hobby first and foremost, and like any hobby, you can spend as much or as little on that hobby and invest as much time or money, which are equally, I consider the same thing when you're talking about a hobby. Time is money. You can invest either. As you said, I think you've had quite some luck with turning around some stuff that you've won and coming out ahead.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you can see how that would work. It's kind of like a reinvestment, but what you're investing in the second time around, it's going to maintain its value. You can always get rid of it and get your money back out of it. Versus something that rotates, if you
There's
held
the
on to it,
$15
it could
Thunderbird
crash.
Regents that are now $2-3.
Exactly. You just lost money. So if you had 100 of those and you paid 15 for them, then you sold them for $2, what do you have left? Nothing. You went in the hole. Versus
I
you
still
turned it.
just don't see it even being a
Well,
sustainable format.
The older formats are for more of the hardcore players that are really competitive. I mean, if you're just playing Magic as a hobby, something to do just to kill time, and you're not ever going to get really serious about it or ever wanting to see the top echelon of play, that's the difference between the people. See, there's different types of people everywhere. I didn't say Legacy's for everybody. I said,
No.
but if you have, 2 to 3 million new players trying Magic for the first time every year, and they stick, so a percentage of
There's a
them's going to
percentage
stick
of them
with
that
it.
are gonna go to
And then there's a percentage of them that have that really competitive nature and spirit, and this is a hobby, and they have the finances and funds to support that hobby. Then they're going to go do whatever they want to do. If they want to play the old formats, it's open to
agree
them.
that people will progress from standard to modern. I don't think that progression is as easy into legacy and vintage. So, I mean, to me, modern's so far away from anything I would want to do. But if I keep I don't really keep cards. I guess that's probably why.
Well, the bottom line is all the good decks are expensive. It doesn't matter what format you play
Well, yeah.
in. The best standard decks are going to cost the most. The cards that make those decks up are going to be the most expensive deck in standard. If you want to go to big events and you really want to play, you got to be playing one of the top 3 decks. If you expect a top 8.
If I was a competitive player in that area of constructor, I would just, if I was that serious about it, I would just buy play sets of every set that came out every time, and then.
And there are guys that do that.
Yeah, and to me that's smart if you're going to invest in it. I mean, to me, but then you're playing, and then you play, draft, and then whatever you get out of that, you sell and get the stuff you maybe didn't have before you started doing that. But that's a very hard commitment to do.
But like I said, the old players that got their stuff for little or nothing and kept it, they're the
Yeah.
ones that come out ahead. Like me, I mean, I paid $1 a piece for my Force of Wills, and I should have bought all 16 the guy had at the time, but I didn't know they were going to end up being worth what they are. I paid $1 a piece for them. That's what they were worth at the time. As in 1996, I paid, I think, $20 for a set of Underground Seas. I mean, that's just what I have in them. I don't have more than $10 in any dual land I own.
Yep, I remember $10 dual lands.
Well, I guess my question is more about the actual value as from a player standpoint, not the financial value or not the value from even if the format is going to stick around. But from, can I learn something as a newer player from trying Vintage out, even if it's proxying up decks? I know that's a bad word to say. Don't say proxy, but proxying up decks and just trying Vintage. Is there a value in Vintage as a format for me, a player trying to learn Magic: The Gathering as a game, or should I just stick with Standard, which is much easier? You know, what's your take on that?
Well, starting out new players, no, I wouldn't throw anybody into Vintage, but you're talking about a card pool that is everything that's ever been printed. You have a lot of singletons in Vintage. You can do some really weird things because you have access to all the tutors, access to all the cheap card draw, access to all the fast mana. You have a lot of things that can happen in a Vintage game. And when the older formats you go back, even Modern, I mean, looking at it in retrospect, something as simple as Modern, you have to think of all the different interactions, and it is more skill-based than, say, Standard. You're locked into pretty much winning or losing the game based upon your opening hand, ever how good it is, because of the variance that's built into the most recent formats, because you don't have access to the cards that alleviate variance. The further back you go, the more variance you alleviate from the game, and I think the least variant format is Legacy, and that's why a lot of people like it, is because that format encompasses, it's not the deck you play, it's how well you know the card pool, how well you know how things interact, and how well you play your deck. It's basically taking most of the luck element out of the card game, where it's more of a skill. And he who has the most skill usually wins the match, regardless if it's a good or bad matchup, because a bad matchup in Legacy is 40%.
Rudely interrupted by a telephone call.
What was I
Anyways, you were
discussing?
saying
I
how
was discussing-
undaunting Legacy is.
Right, I was discussing the difference in the skill formats versus the formats with high variance. Standard is a high variant format. You don't have cards like Ponder, Brainstorm, Preordained, Sensei's Divining Type to smooth out draws, to where it's not a question of what your deck's going to offer you up in a game or what you're going to see, to a question of how well I play the deck versus how well my opponent plays and tries to interact with me in a meaningful way.
But wouldn't it seem like if that's the case and there aren't as many variants, that gives you less stuff to play around with, and it's much easier to master the format, wouldn't it be just boring after a while?
There is no way to master it because there's too many different decks that can win at any given time to master it.
So there is an element of luck.
There's a slight.
There has to be. I mean, there has to be.
There's an element of luck in all formats of Magic. What I'm saying though is it's not as profound in Legacy as it is in the other formats.
I guess I just like more variety.
I mean, let's go back to talking about Vintage, not Legacy. We're assuming Legacy is going to stick around.
Yeah.
Specifically, Vintage format. Is the Vintage format? I mean, yes, we can say that there's every card is available in Vintage, sure, but every card is not even remotely going to be close to playable in Vintage, so your card pool narrows quite extremely. I mean, how many different decks are there in Vintage?
Well, I saw a red-green deck take down a Vintage tournament. He was playing something off the wall that nobody had ever tried before, and nobody had ever seen it. They didn't have a way to deal with it. It had an excellent matchup against the mud decks. It was just way faster than their disruption was. And he went off and just beat him to death with Hydras, I believe is what it was. He was playing a survival strategy, a red-green survival strategy in Vintage. He had 2 Moxes in the deck. That was all the power he was running. And just crushed everybody. but he was cheating because he was running 4 copies of something that acts pretty much in the colors he was playing like a Black Lotus every turn.
Well, was it cheating by the rules?
No,
It's
not cheating by the rules, but essentially he was running 5 Black Lotuses in the deck,
Yeah.
and the reason he could get away with that is because of Orcish Lumberjack, cobbled with Survival of the Fittest
I
and a
don't
few
know
other
any of
little
those
things.
dudes.
Orcish Lumberjack is a creature that costs 1 red. You play him. He's a 1/1. You can tap him to sacrifice a forest. Add any combination of 3 red or green mana to your mana pool in any combination. 2 red and a green, 2 green and a red, whatever. 3 red, 3 green. And he was powering out Hydras that were uncounterable on turn 2 with Anger in the Yard that he pitched from Survival of the Fittest, and using Squee Goblin the Bob to net card advantage off of the Survivor because he pitched Squee every turn, tutor for the creature he wanted, and in the upkeep Squee come back to his hand while wastelanding and disrupting their mana.
See, that's why that's why I
Like I said,
I
daunting.
won't play it.
Too daunting.
Yeah, it's just not my thing.
But games go long. I mean, people don't realize. They think about Vintage, they think about, oh, you kill somebody on the first turn, that happens 0.01% of the time you even get a draw that's capable of doing that. But you hardly, I'd say 1 in 1,000 draws you're going to get a hand that's capable of doing that through any disruption whatsoever. And that's the thing about Vintage, is the type disruption you run in Vintage and the type disruption you run in Legacy are 2 entirely different things, because you're looking to disrupt on turn 0 versus on turn 1. In Vintage.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think physical Vintage is gonna fade away slowly, and it is. It has. And online, you may see it sustain, but I think it's just gonna fade away.
Right. Well, the popularity right now from being something like that, the only way you can get a demographic on it would be to go to the stats on the Magic Online tournaments.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're having some pretty good turnouts, and people are really enjoying it because you can get the stuff to play.
Well, yeah. I mean, they sell the vintage, like basically vintage masters, I guess is what they call them. So you can get all that stuff on there, and you get the cube online too. So I like the cube. I enjoy playing the older cards and seeing the combos. If I played in that format constantly, I think it would just get old real quick.
Speaking of Cube, since the Cube is live, when are we going to do a live podcast Cube? We can all argue about which cards to pick and what to play.
So, what do you mean by that? Like,
I'm saying a 3-way, we're all sitting behind one computer, lunchbox style, and we sit there and draft.
oh,
that
you're
way.
saying online cube.
I'm
doing
saying
it
online Cube. I'm saying we all 3 draft.
We come
and
in
yell
here,
about
we load it up,
cards.
we draft,
Exactly.
and we sit there and bicker about what
And
we
then
gotta
bicker
do.
about cards
Because we got
played
2 minutes to
towards it.
pick each
Yeah.
one. And
No, the 2 minutes is a timer for you to pick before the timer runs down. The thing will stay on the screen until you pick. It's not going to force you to move forward.
I think
Yeah,
it
it will.
does.
No, it will.
Yeah, it'll pick for
No,
you.
mine
Oh, yeah.
didn't.
Well,
On that site that I linked you guys?
No. I'm talking about the actual Magic
Oh,
Online. vintage
playing a
draft.
game.
No, I'm talking about drafting and then playing one match because we're probably not
If
going
you-
to get
If you have lag and it screws up on you, it picks like the worst card. Here's your full Heartland Forest. Merry Christmas.
And it's not even foil. Bastards.
Now, by the way, they do have the expeditions online. I just haven't seen one pulled yet. So.
That's great. What's next? What we got? What we're rolling
That's
into?
That's it, man. We've been running for a while on this, so we'll talk about what we do next week. Hopefully, we get product in. Hopefully, one guy or somehow the order got canceled. Hopefully, this one went out. So it's very frustrating. Another one of those, as Matt said, a challenge that we have over here is getting product in reliably and consistently. That way, we can do a Battle for Zendikar draft.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
If there are any game store owners out there who would like to contact BAF Draft and have a reliable order put in every week or bi-weekly, please give me.
The soldiers would be very, very happy.
We'll pay for it. We just need a reliable shipper.
Yeah, someone who's going to get us the product.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, thank you for joining us for this episode of BAF Draft. Just remember that control sucks, and so does Legacy and Vintage.
Okay, we'll see you guys again, episode 4. Matt, you got anything to say on the way out?
5.
Matt, you got anything to say on the way out?
No, I'm
No,
good
Rob?
here.
No.
Okay, hey, see you guys next week.